Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the XEROS Technology Group PLC full year results investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. They can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab that's just situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and will publish those responses where it's appropriate to do so on the Investor Meet Company platform. Before we begin, I would just like to submit the following poll, and if you would give that your kind attention, I'm sure the company would be most grateful. And I would now like to hand you over to the board of XEROS Technology Group. Klaas, good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Jake, for the introduction, and welcome everyone indeed to XEROS's annual results presentation. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Klaas de Boer, chairman of the board, and have been in this role since the beginning of 2020. All I'll do is say a few words at the beginning and then hand over to Neil and Alex to run you through, as I can see, 31 slides. I hope we're not going through all of them. So to kick off, we've just come out of a Project Procope, the fundraising process we ran, giving an extensive update to all shareholders, either through meetings or through the circular that came at the end of the process. There's not that much new news today, so we can keep today's update relatively brief. Also, what we won't do this time around, I think we did it the last time, is to go in detail through all the business activities of XEROS. For those of you interested, there is a previous version to watch, but we'll try to keep it sort of focused on what is important at this point in time for the business. What we will cover today is a very brief summary of the business, financials 2023, an operational update, and then we'll provide sort of a brief outlook into 2024 and beyond, and explain why, in spite of some of the delays that we've had, we collectively remain very upbeat about the prospects of XEROS. Neil and Alex have promised me that they'll keep the slides to about 20 minutes. So assuming that we do that, there will be plenty of time for Q&A at the end, and we won't take any more of your time than that. With that, Neil, handing over to you to take us through the slides.
Super, thank you, Klaas. Equally for those of you who've not met with me, I'm Neil Austin. I'm the Chief Executive of XEROS, in position since August 2022, and complementing presentation today is Alex Tristram, our finance director, who has been in situ for how long now, Alex?
I think, well, finance director since kind of March last year, on the board from March this year.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so just kind of pick up on what Klaas said. So we will give a brief kind of a company introduction, but really we're hoping that the majority of people know who and what XEROS are about. So we'll keep that quite brief before we move on to some of the more specifics of what we've done in the last year, and indeed what we're working on currently as well. So a very top level introduction of what it is that we do. So there are some key kind of words in the text, the left hand side, just to draw some of those out. So we are a licensing business, a licensing of proprietary sustainable technology. We are a green technology company first and foremost, and we bring innovation, so very much proprietary technology. Our work is very much on garments, so the production of garments and indeed the cleaning of those, and as a result of that, the two industries that we focus on are the laundry and the apparel manufacturing industries. And specifically, the XEROS technology is all about driving efficiencies and savings. So we drive significant cost, energy and water efficiencies, and we also reduce pollutants both in the manufacture and the laundering of clothes. We'll talk a little bit about the microfiber capture element that we've added in recent years. So this chart just gives you a very kind of a brief overview of the life of a garment, from fiber production right in the very beginning through to the yarn and fabric, turned into a textile, an article of clothing, then gets into the hands of the consumer through the consumption phase, and then ultimately end of life when it's no longer in use anymore. The percentages that you can see is effectively the CO2 footprint of that garment through its lifetime, and you can see there are two very clear and obvious peaks And these are the areas where effectively we believe that the industry is effectively kind of in distress. So this is where it has not innovated, it has not brought new technology to market. And as a result, that's why we're focusing our technologies in those two areas. The first one being that the final stage of textile production, which is the bleaching, dyeing and finishing. So we have our XFN finish technology to help with that. And then the second one being in terms of the consumption, the laundering of that technology. We've got two technologies at play there, the XF filtration technology and the XE care technology. Okay, so just give you a very top level view of what those technologies do. The first one being filtration. So Jake, if you could play the first video. So when we talk about filtration, we're talking specifically about microfiber filtration. And so this little video gives you a sense of one of the pieces of kit, which is what we call XF1, and that is an internal integrated filtration device. As you can see, this is for a domestic washing machine. The second piece is what we call our finish technology. So Jake, again, if you could tee this up, this is the manufacturing stage of clothes, in this case denim, and effectively you can see here that we are introducing a new element, and that element is what we call XORBs. So the XORBs displace a certain amount of the water, so reducing that water. The heating of that water is very energy intensive, so we reduce the energy. And actually the XORBs do a very effective job in terms of creating that final look and finish that we want. So actually does it in a more gentle fashion as well. So as well as the reduction on energy, water, and so on, we actually see garment life extension. And equally within the finish technology, we are able to talk a little bit about a replacement of a level of chemistry, and also replacement of finite resources such as pumice stone. Okay, so I think, Jake, if we can go back to the slide, that's get the idea there. And then the final bit of technology is effectively the same. So it's an introduction of XORBs, albeit it's now into the laundry industry. So Jake, if we can tee that video up. So effectively you can see same idea again. We are loading up a washing machine. This is a domestic washing machine, and the key bit that the XEROS technology provides is we're introducing XORBs within this. The XORBs do exactly the same thing as with finish. We are reducing the amount of water by displacing it with the XORBs. Reduced water means reduced energy, since the heating of that water is so energy intensive. And also because it's much more effective medium, we can reduce the amount of chemicals. So in a domestic washing scenario, we're talking about fabric softener, we're talking about washing liquid. Okay, so if we keep going, how do we bring those bits of technology to market into the hands of consumers? So effectively we've got three strands. The first strand is, not surprisingly, through commercial partnerships. So as I said, we are a licensing business. We do not manufacture any of the technology ourselves. We don't have whole stock, which is great from a kind of a capital expenditure side of it. And so we look for commercial partnerships to be able to bring that to market. And actually in all of our technologies that we just ran through, filtration, finish, and care, we have live commercial partnerships in place, which we'll come on to talk about. The second piece we talk about is direct engagement. Now, in many cases, the partnerships, the licensees that we have are not necessarily the final conclusive step to bring that technology to market. So, for example, within a washing machine environment, we may have a license with a component manufacturer, but actually the washing machine brand will be the one that makes the final decision. So as well as the component manufacturer that we have the licensing agreement with, we also have direct correspondence, direct communication, and even go as far as to effectively start the selling process with decision makers. So this is what we call this direct engagement. And the third piece is that because we're talking about innovative technology, quite often we have to go above and beyond the core players within the industry. So again, if we think about washing machine industry, we do talk to all of the washing machine brands, but because we're talking about innovation, we're also being involved in conversations with NGOs and increasingly with legislators as well. So microfiber filtration capture is something that XEROS is becoming very well known for, very well respected for. And we have, whether that's the US, whether it's Europe, indeed, or even Australasia, we're being asked to provide expert testimony about how those can be used within those industries. So three keys. We're not just a licensee business. We're not just engineers and scientists. We're also a commercial business as well. Okay, I'm going to skip through these slides in the interest of time. I'm presuming most people know, but for those that want to, you can go back and have a read. We've got a slide for filtration and finish and for care, which gives you a little bit more of an idea about the specifics of what the technology provides. Okay, if I just hand over to Alex to give us some of the headlines in terms of what we kind of achieved from a financial perspective last year.
Thanks very much, Neil. Yes, so just to run you through some of the financial headlines from the results that were released last week. So revenue up last year by 81%, up to 0.3 million. That's off the back of some additional license fees and some of the sales of XEROS to our partners. The kind of the main thing to highlight there was we talk about. Neil will touch on later the readiness of IFB to launch. That revenue included the final milestone payment from IFB as we completed the technology transfer process back in the last year. So that's really the final step that we needed from IFB to get to the live commercials, which we plan to this year. From an adjusted EBITDA point of view, we brought the loss down by 38% to 4.6 million. That's off the back of a slight increase in gross margin, which I touched on above, but mostly through the cost controls that Neil and I have implemented since we've been involved. That was just through cost control on those administrative expenses, which is touched on below, and that includes a headcount reduction of 37% with a real focus within the business on commercial facing roles and the roles that we have in the business, making sure that we are focusing the spend and the personnel that we have to execute on those commercial opportunities that we have, both those that we've already signed up and those that we're anticipating to sign in the coming months and years. Consequences of that was that cash flow was down by 33%, down to 4.7. So we obviously concluded a fundraise and there was some warrants exercised earlier in the year. So that brought an additional 5.6 million of cash into the business. The cash burn rate in 2023 was down below 0.4 million a month, and that rate is certainly not going to rise in 2024, and we anticipate that it actually might come down as well. So that's that's positive progress from us on a cash point of view. Just to highlight the fundraising, the exercise of warrants that took place in the first part of this year. So we know that we needed to strengthen our balance sheet and provide working capital to enable us to support our partners to launch. But also, what was very important in executing that raise was to provide us with effectively a platform to execute on the significant global opportunities we have. We are. And again, Neil will touch on this later. We're in discussions with a number of significant partners about commercial opportunities, and they needed to understand that we are a stable partner that they can work with in the longer term. And the ability for us to show that strong balance sheet and the platform that will provide us is really important over the coming months and years.
Okay, so just to kind of give some headlines beyond the financials of what did we achieve last year? So just on filtration, first and foremost, when I joined the business in August 2022, we had one licensee in place for the integrated filtration technology. I mean, it was obvious and it was key to me that we needed to provide multiple choices to washing machine manufacturers. So we extended that from 1 to 3 within 2023. So we now have, as I said, we have 3 licensing agreements in place, all with very well-respected component manufacturers, all 3 based in Europe. And through those 3 licensing agreements, we now effectively have access through approved supplier status to effectively the entirety of the global washing machine industry. So 99% of that 105 million per annum washing machine business. In addition to that, we were aware that we also needed to be able to access the pre-installed, so the installed washing machine market, of which there's probably about 1 billion. And so we previewed an external device, so effectively taking exactly the same technology with market-leading capture rate. We previewed that at the preeminent consumer electronics fair in Europe called IFA in Berlin in September of 2023. And as a direct result of that, we are in the final stages in the next month or so to be able to announce effectively a license for that. it will be a manufacturing, distribution, and potentially brand agreement, a quite significant development for XEROS, and will very much give us full capability within this space. In terms of finish, so Alex just kind of briefly mentioned it. It's a technology that we've had for a few years, but again, it was clear to me that we needed an additional licensee for that space. We actively went after one of the leading machinery manufacturers within the industry, a Turkish company called Yilmaz Makina. They're one of the top 3 machinery manufacturers in the world, and delighted to reach agreement with them in June of last year, and signed a licensing agreement. The good news to compound that is that we have kind of really fast forwarded our what we call tech transfer process, and this is effectively our engineers working with the engineers of the licensee to be able to create a finished product which works to provide the results that they want. So literally, as I speak, our sales lead for this area is on his way to one of the industry's leading trade fairs called ITM in Istanbul, which will start tomorrow, to support Yilmaz as they effectively launch full scale the XEROS technology to garment manufacturing companies throughout the world. To supplement this as well, we have continued to work with retail and indeed apparel brands, and we're actually we're in a very good place, particularly now with the Yilmaz partnership, to be able to work towards them prescribing the XEROS technology in the production of some of their core denim ranges. And then finally on care, quite busy area within care as well. So we kind of split care into 2 areas, one being the domestic application and one being what we call the kind of commercial, so the larger machines for commercial implementation. The good news is that in December of last year, we concluded, again, the tech transfer process with IFB on a mass market 9 kg domestic laundry platform. Really significant development and breakthrough that we're able to finally demonstrate that technology can work on a domestic washing machine. And IFB are now in field trials with a view to launching that technology into the Indian market later this year. In addition to that, we have also supplemented on the commercial laundry side of our business a distribution partnership effectively, so a 3-way agreement between ourselves, IFB, and a company called EcoProd. EcoProd are effectively a water reduction expert, so they are very well known within a number of different industries, so the likes of leisure, private healthcare, NHS, and the hospitality markets, and their raison d'etre is to provide hardware to those industries which helps them reduce water, so water reducing showers, water reducing taps, and washing machines is something that they've wanted for a number of years. So a very relevant partnership, and we're expecting that will be able to generate further revenue this year and into 25 and beyond. And then just as an FYI, our kind of our poster child for the use of the technology is a commercial laundry outfit in France called Georges. They have a number of high-profile contracts with the likes of Air France, SNCF, and they use exclusively the XEROS technology to be able to clean the uniforms and the workwear for those companies. Really excitingly, they managed to share with us last year feedback that they indeed had got from SNCF, which highlighted the lab-based garment life extension benefits that we knew existed. And they were saying that in the real world, SNCF were able to report that their uniforms were now lasting for 20% longer, a really significant saving for them, to add to the direct benefits that Georges were getting in the water and the energy and the chemistry savings using the technology. Okay, so that's kind of what we've been working on through 2023, and that's what gives us that level of confidence to say that we're going to be able to make a step up in terms of revenue generation this year. But we're by no means resting upon our laurels, so we're continuing to work to move to what I kind of term a globalization of our technology. And to give you kind of some headlines on that, so we've really been very to the point and clear in terms of both my statement and Class's in the annual report that we are now working with 6 of the global top 10 washing machine brands. So I should technically say they're washing machine brand groups. So although there are multiple brands, you might be surprised at how many of them are actually part of the same ownership structure. And that has really come about because one of the things I've really worked hard to implement over the last 12 to 18 months is really a very much an improved commercial engagement. So we have a newly enlarged commercial team in place. They have very significant industry expertise, not least within the washing machine, the white goods industry. And we've been able to leverage that extensively to be able to get very, very positive and meaningful engagement with some of those big brands. And this is really all about what our focus is at this moment in time, which is commercialization of what I'm calling the market-ready technology. We are an R&D business, but actually we've got technology which the world wants, which is ready, and that's what the focus of the business is right now. And that's manifest really in all of the technologies. So from a filtration perspective, we are in active discussions with 4 global consumer electronics brands, a global chemical company, a multiple European retail group, about bringing that XEROS filtration technology to market, whether that's the integrated XF1 or the external XF3 technology. On the care side of it, it's really very significant momentum. Again, we're in discussions with 4 global washing machine brands, not the same brands as we're talking about on filtration, but 4 brands, so 1 Southeast Asian, 1 North American, and 2 European-based companies, about bringing that XE1 technology into their current platforms. So I can tell you that at this moment in time, our engineers are actively engaged on working on machines from those brands to be able to demonstrate that technology works. And the initial results we're getting are extremely encouraging. We're also active on the commercial laundry side of it. So most of you, I think, will know that we have licenses in place with a Chinese company called Sea Lion, an Indian company, which is IFB. But we've always known that to really get globalization of the technology, we need a North American and a European manufacturing partnership. So we're in negotiations with such a group at this moment in time, with a view to them licensing the XC2 technology, and that has the potential to go live actually within this calendar year. And finally, on the Finnish side of it, as I mentioned before, the Yilmaz partnership to complement what we already have with Ramsons in India is really transformational for us. We will have really approved manufacturers of garment manufacturing machinery, which nearly pretty much any garment manufacturer in the world will be happy to work with. And so we're leveraging that to create greater awareness, greater demand and pull for our technology. So there are a number, as I said before, of brand and retailers that take denim products that want to specify the XEROS technology within their ranges. So really very significant opportunities that the team are working hard on, so that we can have that next level of step up for the business in probably 2025 and beyond. Okay, I mean that's kind of where we are. On the presentation, you'll see, as it will be hosted on our website and indeed on the Investor Meet platform, there is further granularity related to the financials. But I mean, in terms of what we really wanted to talk to you guys about today, I think that's the conclusion of the key parts of the presentation. Jake, shall I hand back to you?
Absolutely, please, Neil, and Class and Alex as well. Thank you very much indeed for your presentation this afternoon. If I may just jump back in there. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just by using the Q&A tab that's situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the company take a few moments to review those questions that were submitted already, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Guys, as you can see there in the Q&A tab, we have received a number of questions that were both pre-submitted submitted ahead of today's event, as well as those that have come through throughout your presentation this afternoon as well. So firstly, thank you to all of those on the call for taking the time to submit their questions. And guys, at this point, if I may just hand back to you to read out those questions and give your responses where it's appropriate to do so, and then I'll pick up from you at the end. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jake. So we've got the first question, which is one I've had. You'll not be surprised to know a number of occasions through the last week or so on, which is about when the first royalty income will be raised and to what levels. So, Alex, do you want to maybe give a bit of colour to the investors on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Neil. Yeah, so in terms of royalty income and the value of that, I guess without going into individual commercial specifics on all of our deals, our view is very much that we expect revenue in the form of both license royalty income and the income we generate from the sale of our XEROs where appropriate. So that's on the care and on the finish technologies. We expect those to come through across all four of the technologies, so finish, filtration, and care, both commercial and domestic, in 2024. We're expecting contributions from all four of those, and this is contributions from our existing license partners. So if we take them kind of in turn, IFB domestic being the first one. So as Neil mentioned, absolutely their view is that they will launch their domestic platform in India in 2024. So we're still in discussions with them about exactly how that launch is going to look and the kind of the stocks of XEROs that they're going to need on hand, and there will be some kind of lumps in our revenue as we work through the kind of real life commercial specifics of those contracts. That's absolutely on track for this year. The kind of as a business, they are India's third largest kind of washing machine supplier. They sell about 1 million machines a year, which is a significant part of the global market. So we're expecting revenue from them. Likewise on commercial, they have their own kind of sales process that goes through in India, and we are helping them, as Neil mentioned, with EcoProd earlier this year. So we signed earlier this year. So yeah, we expect to see revenue from them as well. Again, Neil talked about Yilmaz and their kind of full launch, which is imminent and literally imminent in the next couple of days. We expect to see revenue from those this year. It's obviously a kind of smaller in terms of numbers of machines sold. The denim processing market is about 8,000 to 10,000 machines sold a year, and our licensees cover roughly 10 to 15% of that market. So we expect the penetration to start to come through this year, but we think it'll take a little bit of time to get up to the numbers we really want on that one. And the same on filtration. So we've been clear previously that we expect our first bits of filtration revenue to come through from the external unit, the XF3, i.e. the retrofit one that will be sold alongside new machines, but also can be accessed by consumers wishing to kind of retrofit to their already installed machine. So we think that royalty will come through this year, and yeah, we hopefully can talk more about that in due course.
Okay, good. Thank you, Alex. That kind of quite nicely tees up some other questions that we've got specifically about microfiber legislation. So there's kind of a three-parter, effectively, as I can see it, to this question. So the first is how likely, and more importantly, how plausible is it that governments in the UK, Germany and Italy, Germany and Italy being the largest producers of washing machine in Western Europe, will implement legislation and regulations in the short term that will make the use of microfiber filtration technology mandatory? So again, I get this question on a kind of a weekly basis. I can answer it in terms of the facts as we have them today, and also my opinion. So I mean, the facts as we have it today is that there's either legislation on books, or indeed there is conversations at a kind of a governmental level for a significant number of countries across the world. And so that would be France, that would be the European Commission, that would be several states within the US, Canada and Australasia. So France is the only one that has put anything on the legislative books at this moment in time. But there is definitely a very clear awareness, and there is indeed a kind of an initiative at place. In terms of will people be compelled or will they be obliged to buy it? Is that the only way that there would ever be a demand for filtration products? I mean, again, objectively, we can tell you that there are two reference points we always talk to. One is we conducted our own consumer insight studies, so several thousand people across France, Germany, and the UK. Not profiled in any way, so not specifically very much environmentally considerate people, probably just an average cross section. And actually, we got some very, very interesting information back from that. The one stat which always sticks in my head is that once made aware of the issue of microfibers, for one, and once made aware of the solution that the XEROS technology can provide, at an appropriate price point, which is kind of circa £100, €100 or thereabouts, 4 in 10 people said that they would be willing to spend more money. So not needing to be compelled by governments, but given the option, they absolutely would be interested to buy that technology. In more recent times, in the last 12 months as well, we also know one of the washing machine manufacturers also conducted a kind of a blind test. So they, on their website, put up a kind of a mocked up microfiber solution with a view to try and do a bit of testing to see if people were given the option, would they be interested to purchase the technology. So again, they tried different price points, and the same thing again, that kind of actually in their studies, that sub €130 seemed to be the kind of key price point, and they were getting similar sort of levels of take up. So independently, people being made aware, or sometimes it even just being an option from a purchase perspective, clearly demonstrates to us that there is already an awareness and there is an interest in being able to purchase it. Second part of the question is whether, I think if I'm reading it correctly, is will manufacturers have to rely on a third-party provider for that technology, or will they develop it on their own? So again, we can't sort of answer generically about that one, because each washing machine manufacturer has its own approach to these things. What I can tell you from my own some sort of 8-9 years working within that industry is that any innovations that you have seen that have come out from the washing machine industry, and there haven't been many, to be honest, any innovations have exclusively come through third parties. So as consumers, we wouldn't be aware of that, but I can tell you that any of the innovations have been because washing machine companies have partnered with an expert within the space, and we see that being played out again within microfibers. So without betraying confidences, I can tell you there isn't a single washing machine company that I'm aware of that is doing its own in-house development without the support of third party. And this is because in reality, these washing machine companies are becoming brands. So they are brands and assemblers of componentry, but actually a lot of the development and indeed the manufacture of the componentry is being handled by third parties. So yeah, from a XEROS perspective, this goes back to that secondary point of our how do we break our technology? We have to have direct relationships with those manufacturers so that they want to work with us and indeed some of our licensing partners on microfiber filtration. And then I think the third part of it is about, in the absence of legislation, how likely and more importantly, how plausible is it that consumers will voluntarily install microfiber filtration technology? So I think I've kind of addressed that one in terms of some of the reference points I talked about. The piece is about whether they would want to be able to have that inside the machine over having that as an external device. So I think again, the simple answer to that is our consumer insight studies tells us, and indeed we hear it played back from the brands, that they know ultimately consumers would prefer to have it inside of the machine, and ultimately I think longer term that's where we'll get to. However, this is where it becomes very important that the usability of external devices has been considered, and you know, we would say this, but we're very confident at XEROS that our combination of flexibility of positioning of it, the fact that there are no replacement cartridges, the fact that it works entirely with all washing machine brands really puts us in a very strong position. So yeah, I mean, longer term, it will be an integrated solution. I've no doubt about that, but the market will be made in the next few years, and external devices will help us to do that. And not least, as I said before, it gives us the ability to provide that technology to people who already have perfectly good, perfectly working operational washing machines that have been purchased in the last couple of years, because obviously we don't want them to ditch that just to get their hands on it. Okay. Second bit, just reading through these questions as they come. So comments in terms of news flow. So when do we expect commercial revenues for each of the business verticals? We've referenced the fact that on filtration, we are hoping in the next month or so, month or two, to be able to make some announcements there. We've also talked to some of the really exciting leads that we've got, also on finish with garment brands, and indeed with some of the really big global brands on care, and indeed on filtration. We see there's potential that we could have news flow on those within this year, and certainly that's what we're working towards. Next question I might perhaps put towards class. I think having had a bit more context on the businesses, given the innovative and essential XEROS technology, why do you think the share price has lagged value?
Yeah, thank you, Neil. Obviously, at the end of the day, the share price is the result of what investors do, voting with their feet. What you see is that the segment we operate in, which is the very low end of the AIM market, many companies have seen share prices under pressure. So I think the market as a whole, the fund managers operating in the segment have seen outflows. So some of them have been forced sellers of whole portfolios of shares just to provide liquidity to their investors. That was driven to a large degree by sort of the interest rate and inflationary environment we've been in. But I think we also have to put it back to ourselves. If you go back to when I joined the board 4 years ago, and sort of expectations at that point in time about when we would commercialize our technologies, as I said in my introduction, we have seen delays. If you look at sort of bigger picture at our end user markets, if you think about commercial laundry and hospitality, that industry suffered very, very badly during COVID. Balance sheets were hit hard, and those businesses have had to rebuild their balance sheets before they invest. And adopting our technology means they have to invest in equipment. The good news is that our equipment delivers both benefits from sort of a sustainability perspective, but at the end of the day is also better. So it's not that you pay more to get the benefits, but actually you're paying less to get those benefits. So ultimately, that once those balance sheets are properly rebuilt, we'll see that take off. But those are the delays that we as a business have had. And I think similarly, if you think about what we're doing in Finish, in the apparel industry, you just have to pick up a newspaper, what's going on in the high streets and how brands are struggling. So also there, again, the positive is that on denim finishing, at the end of the day, we deliver benefits at lower cost. So the adoption is a matter of time. And I think all of that together is probably an explanation why we have lagged. But at the same time, what you've heard from Neil and Alex, expecting revenues to come in from all 4 segments we're operating in this year. Hopefully we can convince all of you over the course of this year with news flow that XEROS shares are worth owning.
Okay, thank you, Klaas. Got a question about IP. So the status and longevity of our IP. So I mean, as I said, we're very much in that phase now, which is commercialization of the technology we've got. We have an extensive IP portfolio, multiple families of protection, but equally they have continued to develop. So even on some of those, if you like, more mature technologies that we've got, such as care, some of the original IP maybe doesn't have so much life left in it, but we've actually superseded on that. So we've got a good level of protection on pretty much all of our technologies. And Alex, maybe if you could help me in terms of when those are due to expire. I think we've got about 20 plus years on most of the technology.
So yeah, I mean, as you said, there's a kind of a breadth across the portfolio, because some of our technologies, it's been an iterative process. It wasn't just file a patent and then done. There's some which are still going through the grant process, but kind of the core range that we have goes out to the late 2030s and beyond that. So we're not expecting kind of any freedom to operate or any kind of patent problems to come in before we get to those times. And I guess one of the things we always try and highlight here is that our IP coverage is one thing. Another thing that really is important is the know-how, and we've been doing this a long time. Perhaps as some people will appreciate, and the ability to get our technology to the optimized state that we've got it takes a lot of know-how and a lot of the work we've put in over the years. So there's kind of a couple of aspects that protect us from that point of view.
Okay, good. Thank you, Alex. Just a question about the revenue that we generate from George's. I mean, I think historically with George's, we have generated it because we've been on what I guess you could kind of consider sort of service contracts. That's a legacy of the old Xeros model. As George's continues to grow, our revenue very much that we're expecting from them is the same as it would be from anybody that takes XEROS technology. So we get a royalty for the supply of any new machinery that goes into George's, and equally we make a good margin in terms of the replacement XORBs that are provided through to George's as well. So yeah, I mean, for George's, that's how we would see, for example, the EcoProd partnership developing, and indeed as the EcoProd piece continues to bear out, there are other interested parties at a European level as well. So that I guess is the more relevant piece when we're kind of talking about that. The fundamental question again that we all get asked is how confident are we that no further fundraising will be required? I mean, I can tell you that we are working very hard for that to be the scenario. As Alex talked you through on some of the financials, we are very, very considerate with the money that investors have rewarded us with to be able to fund this business. We're very careful with the expenditure of that. We are focusing very much on commercialization. So really pretty much all R&D beyond fine-tuning of the current technology has been put on hold until such times as we can really break even and make our own way. So I mean, the confidence levels are good within the business. The caveat with all of this is that because we are a licensing business, ultimately it's not 100% in our control. So we get very good feedback, very good sentiment from those licensees that we talked about. IFB launching on domestic, Yilmaz launching this week with the Finnish technology, high interest in our filtration technology, and indeed interest in what EcoProd are trying to do within the UK. So everything is pointing in the right direction, and the models that we look at now are looking positive. But as I said, ultimately it is out of our hands. It's down to those licensees to be able to follow through on those bits. I guess kind of maybe slightly connected to that. So going forward, will you be giving guidance for annual revenue and margin? So at this moment in time, as I said, our guidance remains unchanged. You can refer to the Cavendish Brokers note on that. The key thing that we are focused on is getting to operational break even so that we can generate more money than we spend on a kind of a monthly basis, and for that to be a foundation for us to build the business on.
Yeah. Neil, maybe I can add one or two words to that question on guidance, because I think that also ties into the earlier question about share price. And obviously, we operate a license model at this moment in time with a relatively small number of licensing partners, where also the terms of those licensing agreements are commercially confidential, which makes it difficult for us as a company to communicate the value of those agreements externally. And I think as we grow, as our licensing partners commercialize and they themselves have better visibility on their own revenue forecast, we can consolidate that and start to think about giving guidance. At this point in time, the confidentiality requirements around the individual agreements we have and the small number of agreements we have, combined with the lack of visibility through those agreements individually, makes it very hard to do. But I would expect, as this business matures, and I'm not going to talk about when I expect, but going forward, there will be a point in time where we will be able to provide sort of ranges around what we think is reasonable to expect. But today, we're not there. That is one of the challenges we have as a business in the stage we're in.
Yeah, absolutely, Klaas. Okay, we've got another microfiber question specific to the Samsung offering. So yeah, we're very aware of the Samsung proposition. I mean, what I would say generally is that, on Care and the Finnish technology, there really is no other comparable tech to what we do. I mean, there are ways that the industry is trying to reduce water or reduce the amount of energy, but in terms of the specifics of our technology, there is nothing even remotely close to it. When it comes to microfiber capture, I mean, it would be nearly impossible to patent the entirety of an industry. So there are a number of different players. I mean, if I can talk more broadly than just the Samsung proposition, there are a couple of what we would call industry propositions within that. So the likes of Electrolux under the Electrolux brand and the EAG brand have got some pretty basic static filters, and indeed also the Beko Europe group under its Grundig brand for selling curries within the UK. That theirs is integrated. The Electrolux product is external, and effectively it's a static filter. The water pushes against it. It technically captures a level of microfibers for a certain period of time, but it's a kind of a sales and marketing message. It blocks, and I think both of those companies would be honest enough to say that it blocks and then activates a bypass. So the machine continues to operate, but effectively it's not capturing microfibers anymore. There are some better propositions out there from an industry perspective, and we would probably say Samsung is among the better ones. The reason why it's not as good as it could be is because they've actually had to work around the XEROS IP. So they equally have a rotating filter with a bezel to clear it out, but because they've had to operate around the XEROS IP, it's not still as effective as it ultimately could be. The interesting bit as well is thinking about the ambitions of companies like Samsung. So again, the benefit of having worked within consumer electronics for a long period of time, I can tell you Samsung have zero interest in selling accessories, which is what they see this device as, to anyone other than Samsung customers. So they only want to offer up as an attachment to Samsung washing machine sales, and actually even then, as we have seen operating within the market, the availability of the product is very scarce. So it's nearly impossible to get your hands on one in the UK, as an example. And again, objectively, I can tell you that if you go on and you see reviews of that product, they aren't great. So we think the Samsung product has the right kind of idea because, how can I put this in a nice way? It's quite similar to the XEROS technology, but it's not quite as good as the XEROS technology. So no, we're not concerned about it. And indeed, we're talking about trying to break a whole new technology, trying to break a whole new industry effectively for an industry with appliances, which again, as I know, is very conservative. So it's actually good for us that other companies are playing within this space. It raises awareness. We are an R&D company in the north of England. At the end of the day, we don't have the marketing budgets of the likes of the Samsung product, but it's good that it raises awareness of microfiber captured washing machines, because we feel very confident that will then lead to people ultimately doing their research and seeing that the XEROS product is the best one out there. So I think that's okay. Good. A little note to agree with the lack of availability. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it in terms of questions. So Jake, maybe can I hand back over to you, or do we need to wrap up there?
No, absolutely. Neil, Class, Alex, thank you very much indeed for being so generous of your time then, addressing all of those questions that came in from investors. And of course, if there are any further questions that do come through, we'll make these available to you immediately after the presentation has ended, just for you to review, to then add any additional responses, of course, where it's appropriate to do so. And we'll publish all those responses out on the platform. But Neil, perhaps before really just looking to redirect those on the call to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to yourself and the company, if I could please just ask you for a few closing comments to wrap up with, that would be great.
Sure. Okay. I mean, I think it's kind of a bit heartfelt, but it's honest and it's true. I mean, when I joined this business in August 2022, I saw just a significant opportunity, a huge opportunity for a technology that the world needed. So whether it was the microfiber capture, or whether it was the care or the finished technology, the industries that we were targeting want and need this. So I've seen a huge opportunity for it in terms of what the industries need. I think consumers want it. And I think actually the industries are now becoming aware and seeing the benefits of the technology. So the demand, if you like, that I had hoped would be there, I can tell you that having worked here now for just over 18 months, the demand from the industries is really, really strong. I am very confident in the technology. It is market ready. The industries are ready to be able to take it. And, we have made some really significant progress. Maybe, well, for sure, we don't see it in the share price. People would like to see it in RNSs and news flow, but we're probably actually slightly ahead of where I thought we would be at this point. So the vision, if you like, that the business had and that I shared and that I joined in with, we are living that, and I really very much see that coming to the fore in the next kind of 12 to 18 months. So I just want to thank those people that have supported and invested in the business. It means a lot to all of us, and it continues to give us the opportunity to deliver this, which we're very confident we will do. So thank you.
Neil, that's great. And thank you once again for updating investors this afternoon. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can really better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of XEROS Technology Group PLC, we would like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That now concludes today's session, so good afternoon to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.